all the distinguished guests and the participants for this ATAL FDP on Internet of Things. It will run for 5 days from today till November 18th. And today being Diwali, on behalf of IIT Goa and myself, I wish everyone a very happy Diwali. Okay. So one thing before we begin the proceedings, I would request everyone is to keep their microphones muted. And when you have any question during the question and answer session, please unmute and ask, or better would be if you can type in the chat window, and then we'll take your questions through the chat window. Okay. So today with us, we have Professor B.K. Mishra, Director, IIT Goa. He is the chief guest for this FDP. So let me first introduce Professor B.K. Mishra to all of you. So Professor B.K. Mishra is currently the Director of Indian Institute of Technology, Goa. Before this, he was the Director of CSIR's IMMT lab in Bhubaneswar for about 10 years. And prior to that, he had been a professor at IIT Kanpur. His areas of research include particulate materials, discrete element methods, and appropriate technology for rural sectors, etc. He finished his PhD from University of Utah in 1991 in metallurgical engineering, and he obtained his MS in metallurgical engineering from Wayne State University in 1986, and BSc from NIT Rourkela in 1981 in metallurgical engineering. So I would like to highlight two things about him, which have happened very recently. Is one, he has been conferred the Distinguished Alumnus Award of NIT Rourkela, and he is also ranked 11 in the world in the field of metallurgy and mining, according to the most recent rankings of world scientists and Indian scientists in the world in different areas. So with this, I would like to welcome Professor B.K. Mishra as the chief guest for the event, and I would request him to declare the FDP open and to share his thoughts on how IITs can help in enhancing engineering education in the country. Welcome, Professor Mishra.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Sinha. Now, first of all, I'm very happy that we are able to organize this FDP on a very auspicious day. So on my behalf, I wish everyone a happy Deepavali. Now, this topic that you have given me, IIT's role in enhancing engineering education system, this is one topic. I mean, all of us will appreciate the way things are happening in India while I speak during this pandemic period. So I'll touch on some of these issues. Education everywhere is across the globe is a big ticket item, and but there are issues, and once Nelson Mandela had said that it is not beyond our power to create a world in which all children have access to a good education. So the heart of this engineering education or education as a whole, the core issue is this accessibility and equitability, and all these issues are quite important. And we in IIT system, we also have our own share of issues, and particularly in relation to accessibility. And so what's the solution? I mean, if you look at IITs, we started what? In IIT Kharagpur was first established in 1951, and other IITs followed, and we have IIT Goa as late as 2016. Okay. And in between, there were other IITs. Some IITs got converted from their status. They were pre-independence Some of them were established before independence, and they got converted, and new IITs opened up. So we increased our number of seats and provided access to more number of students. Today, about 15,000, 16,000 undergraduate students enter IITs, and graduate students perhaps more than that. And at present, we have 23 IITs the country. And why IITs are at the focus of when we talk about engineering education? That's because this is IIT is a very successful model, and any institution I feel to be successful must have its foundation right, and there must be proper structure systems.
Professor Mishra, I think you got muted.
Okay. So are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Now I didn't mute myself. I mean, no, and why would I? I guess. Okay, I don't know where I was, but I'll start again. We are about 23 IITs, and we discuss about IITs because it's a very successful model. So for any institution to be successful, I believe the foundation must be right. And within the system, you must have right kind of system and processes to address all academic and non-academic issues. You must have visionary leadership and must have autonomy, autonomy with commensurate responsibility. And also, IITs in comparison to other institutes, we get adequate funding, and and other resources are available, and we are free from government interferences. We have our own system within, which sort of takes care of all our issues. And when this IIT system, perhaps when earlier on, when it was established, we received cooperation, both material cooperation, academic cooperation from countries like US, Soviet Union, that time, Germany, and United Kingdom. And all these IITs, like for example, IIT Kanpur, was developed, modeled after US system, and Madras perhaps got help from Germany. If you look at the Indian government budget, about 25 to 35% goes to IIT and NITs. So funding is adequate. And we have a strong IIT alumni connection. If you go to any IIT today, you will have a center or a department named after a famous IITs, and IITians are present in all sectors, from industry to art and culture to even in politics. So, but what is it all about? I mean, we have about 500 million people in the age group of 5 to 24. And therefore, the education as a whole, this sector provides huge opportunity. So, but when we talk about accessibility and equity to high quality education, the question arises: is it possible to create capability, today outside classroom? The 16,000 students coming into IIT, is that enough? Now we have issues. There are gaps between what is taught and what is practically needed. So if you look at, there is a report, which came out that, in India, although we are #1 in producing that many number of engineers, 80% of our engineers are not fit for a job in the current knowledge economy. And only 2.5% possess tech skills, such as these days we talk about artificial intelligence, machine learning, and stuff like that, which industry requires. But what are those people? So, so we have to look at higher education, reorient the whole thing. And I'm glad that this has already started. And we had no option but to take our this field in a completely new direction, and it's for better. So in India today, if you look at the students spend around 45,000 crore per year getting foreign education. Okay, I know many people, they are there abroad and they're going through taking up foreign education. Now, the bigger shortage here is trained faculty, and I'm heading here, and I know there are challenges, and we don't get right kind of people to come and teach in IIT system. And lately, we also see our traditional way of teaching and learning, and we have noticed students are disinterested in learning. So we have found that the solution is to encourage practical and experiential learning, so to speak, through what I would call blended model. And how can you take advantage of these tech tools and enhance the quality of education. And we have already experimented with some of that in our programs in IIT Goa and in other IITs also. It's going on today. There are issues like your social life, your laboratories, and the kind of environment you get here, extracurricular activities, so on and so forth. But nonetheless, this is going to provide the right kind of access and quality education that we are talking about. And this is going to stay, and this is going to be the future. And IoT also, by the way, has a role to play here. Perhaps somebody would like to touch on that particular issue. And once all these things put together, IIT, is within IIT, all these ingredients are there to take this education to the next level. And if you look at what has happened in recent times, when this COVID thing started, our Prime Minister gave a clarion call that time that we have to somehow innovate to address these issues. There was short supply of so many things, particularly these PPEs and stuff like that. You see, so many things came out. These ideas were put into practice, and I can list that IIT Delhi came forward with this low-cost COVID-19 test, which has gone really popular. Otherwise, testing itself was quite expensive. The digital stethoscope came from IIT Bombay, and that's also becoming quite popular. Portable ventilators from IIT Roorkee, IIT Kanpur, and all that. They are quite good, and they are quite affordable. So and at the same time, if you look at intellectual pursuit, IIT Goa became part of the national supermodel for COVID-19 efforts. And if you look at our website, you will find that national supermodel for COVID-19 visualization and data analysis. That site is posted here. So this is a national effort, and we were part of this effort, and we are doing all the calculations, and that website is hosted here. So how all these things happened in such a short period of time? Why this was not happening? So if you look at it, within IIT, we give you a multidisciplinary research approach. We cross people in the corridors, unlike universities, far-flung departments, isolated buildings here and there. Here we meet all our people almost every day across corridors, in playgrounds, and everywhere. And we discuss our issues, problems, and this provides a multidisciplinary research opportunities. We borrow ideas from here and there, put them together, and come up with the right kind of solution. So research cannot be done in isolation. So it requires support from at least modern days. It's not possible. So, and then within IIT, what I have noticed, there is a strong startup ecosystem, which we have also just started. But in older IITs, if you see, a lot of funding available, a lot of young guys, they are taking up startup challenge, and they're coming up with innovative solutions, and that's what is really impressive. And then lately, what has happened? Government of India has taken a stand. If you go to DBT, DST, and other funding agencies, and even ministries, they are insisting on product-driven funding initiatives. So when we are talking about product-driven funding initiatives, what kind of product? I mean, that's where even IoT plays a much bigger role. And when we are talking about product, IoT is not a software concept. Perhaps in some cases it is, but most of the times you'll find it's about some product. So that's where, these drivers making the IIT effort that much more visible. And therefore, I personally believe that IIT is going to make a very big impact here in our engineering education realm. And the last thing, one last word, my experience, whatever I have read, how things evolved in countries like Japan and Germany after Second World War, and United States supported Germany and allowed that countries to grow and resurrect, so to speak, their post-war economy. And slowly, today Germany is a highly advanced country. And early 70s, 80s, if you notice, then this globalization and trading sort of shifted the economy from Western countries to Far East countries, and then now even doing business in China is quite difficult because the cost of labor and electricity, power, and water and everything is and environment consciousness is also quite high. Therefore, these small technologies, what I call screwdriver technologies, They are sort of shifting from there to Bangladesh, Philippines, Vietnam, so on and so forth. So what do we find our space? That's the big challenge. I believe that if IITs are fully integrated with our economy, then they will make a very big difference. And I personally believe that in another 3-4 years, we'll be there competing with in a very big way. And particularly the field that we are talking about, IoT, there is huge scope, and with 5G and others coming, and high-speed computing and stuff like that, IoT certainly going to make a big difference. Once again, so I'm very happy to see so many people have joined, and early morning on a Diwali day, very auspicious. And once again, I wish all of you a very happy Deepavali. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening. Over to you, Sharad.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Mishra, for a very nice overview of how IITs can help in enhancing engineering education in the country. You traced the time period from the establishment of the very first IITs all the way till today. So that's very interesting, and I hope the participants would have gained something very important from that. So I'll take just one question for you, and then we'll move to the next stage of the program. So there is one question which is, sir, don't you think that there is too much burden over IITs for quality education, innovation, etc.?
Well, yeah. No, don't. I don't view it as a burden. So we have to, if you feel that it's a burden, we have to find a solution. It's like Le Chatelier principle. So when you have a lot of pressure, then the system is going to react in a way to relax. Okay, that's the way it's going to happen in education also. I mean, you suddenly, once you open it up to private sector, I personally believe that private sector must come in a very big way. It's not like a small outfit to make quick bucks, but they have to come up. Like there are universities now in partnership with Georgia Tech and with Stanford, and they are also coming here and establishing their institutes in India. I mean, Singapore MIT Alliance is also one such successful model. And those will, once those come here, you will have a different type of competition altogether. I mean, it's not that, competition will bring the best from any system or from any person. That's what I believe. And, here in India, like I said, there is no funding crunch, the problem, brand is already established. Therefore, IIT to some extent is where it is today. But at the same time, if you look at it in foreign countries, it was never like that, that will have IITs, or MITs in US, something like that. The whole thing evolved, so to speak, through competition and need and requirements of the society. So here also, you will notice that that in your lifetime, in this sector, education sector, so many things going to happen, and it's all waiting to happen. You will notice that. So in that way, the Le Chatelier principle will work, and everything will be relaxed, and you will have much more better access to education.
Thank you, Professor Mishra. I hope Mr. Chandramouli Tiwari, your question is answered, and you got to learn a few more things from Professor Mishra. Okay, so thank you once again, Professor Mishra, for sharing your views on how IITs can help in shaping engineering education in the country. Next, as we move on with the event, we have with us Professor Somnath Biswas. He is currently Professor in Charge Faculty Affairs at IIT Goa. He is a distinguished visiting professor at IIT Goa, having retired from IIT Kanpur. He has also served as the director of IIIT Allahabad and in various other senior administrative positions in IIT Kanpur. Here he is associated with us with the School of Mathematics and Computer Science. And for those of you who are from theoretical computer science background, I would just like to mention that Professor Biswas is considered as one of the founders of, or I would say forefathers of initiating research in theoretical computer science in India. So he is going to talk to you about various roles of a faculty member, because this is a faculty development program. So we thought this would be of something interest to all of you. So welcome, Professor Biswas.
Professor Biswas has connected.
Yeah, he has connected.
Sorry. Good morning to everybody and a happy Diwali to everybody. I will, for a few minutes, maybe I can, you can see myself, and then I have a few present slides, so which will go through. So the topic today, I mean, it's difficult, you know. I mean, it's a kind of advice some I have to say about various roles of faculty members and in an institution. And so let's see the various roles. Next slide, if we can go to. Yeah, so these are you know, classroom teaching. But of course, now classroom teaching has a wider context, in the sense that it can be an online course, so there the reach is much more. But I think the basic principle, at least some of the basic principles, remain same. Then doing research, supervising students, then contributing in administration, both for the institute and for the department, and being a colleague. I think this is a very important thing. Well, we'll spend a little time on it. How do you become a good colleague? Playing a role in professional societies, carrying out sponsored research, consultancies. More or less, these are the various dimensions in which you will see a faculty member. And simultaneously, in fact, at least 3-4 of these, out of these 6, at least I would say 4 are carried out by every faculty member. So it's not that somebody is doing, at least in most of these slightly better institutions, we just don't have teaching faculty and research faculty separately, etc. So now then I have some opinions about all these. Now, the disclaimer is these are personal opinions and not scientifically verified or anything like that. So please take it in that spirit. Whatever experience I have, some of the things that I would like to share here. So let's see about classroom teaching. Next slide, if we can go to. Yeah. See, this is very important, you know, we should be honest as a teacher. I don't know what, if you understand what I mean. Firstly, of course, we should never pretend that we know something when we don't. This is basic, but there are other things in honesty. For example, am I being honest to the subject I'm teaching? Am I being anyway, honesty would also mean being fair to everybody, and there are various aspects, right? Now, I can tell you one thing, that we talked of IIT Kanpur, and it just so happened that initially when the computer science department started, it so happened a lot of senior people left the institutes from the department. Then there was few of that time I was quite young. Few of us left, and we had to do the teaching. And this is something that happened, it never happens. It was a new program. Kanpur was the first IIT to start computer science. And I think we had 25 seats or something like that. JEE first, except, the top, it got filled up with the top rankers of JEE. So, when as a young teacher, I kind of felt that one thing I should not do is to put off somebody to say that, oh, I don't like this subject, I had such a bad teacher or something like that. Bad teacher is okay, but I don't like the subject, therefore should not happen. So that is also a part of honesty. I sincerely believed, and it is indeed true, because I had Rajiv Motwani in class. I had taught him, and there are various, people, and they are smarter than me. But at the same time, that attitude of being respectful, that helped. As most students, our second bullet is seeing what is being taught for the first time, they have a fresh outlook. Among many of their naive questions, at times there are deep ones from which a teacher can learn a lot. But you need to be attentive, you should not be dismissive of our students, and be respectful to our students. And then final bullet is interesting. Professor Kelkar, he is the founder director of IIT Kanpur. And that history is amazing history, right? Of course, Professor Mishra touched upon it, that it had this, IIT Kanpur had a collaboration with US universities. And which are these universities? All these top universities like Berkeley, Stanford, MIT, Caltech, and so on. And their people actually came here, but they were all, in a way, the director was Professor Kelkar. He had the final authority. So, and that, because of that, he managed to get a lot of people from abroad, Indians, to leave their positions in the US or, abroad, and join IIT Kanpur. And that gave that fillip to IIT Kanpur, but that's a history. But once he was chatting with, he would chat with young people. So he was chatting with one young person who was recently recruited. And he says he asked, how did his teaching go this semester? He said, sir, I tried my best, but I could not cover the syllabus. So Professor Kelkar said that, young man, we recruited you to uncover a subject, not to cover it. And so that has various shades of meaning. So you can take it. In other words, what I'm trying to say, every subject, if you go to it, there is a heart of it. Am I touching the heart of it? It is one thing to cover chapter after chapter and all that. But I would say that because of most of these traditional or even things which are fairly recent, you will see, if you think deeply, it is inevitable. Science has a kind of inevitability. And that comes from a basic core, at least in my areas like complexity theory, logic, etc. I can see that. Machine learning, I can recently see that, and so on. So am I putting that across? So it's not just basically doing one chapter after another. So that should be, that is all for the time being. Next, maybe the next slide. I will not cover all the aspects because lack of time. Supervising students, I find it, I mean, I'm being very frank, that I find today there is a pressure. I don't think that it is, that pressure is created internally by us only, that you must graduate a PhD student before you can get a promotion. So, this fear that I won't be promoted, and that people accept all kinds of students. And so whereas supervising a good student is a rewarding experience, it is just the opposite with a bad PhD student. This is all the more true for our first PhD student. So, I mean, this will be my advice. I mean, that it is better to wait for a good student than to take, a student who is not good. And actually, there is another point, I mean, after all, after the PhD, suppose, I mean, you are good, you do his thesis mostly, and he graduates, or he or she graduates. What is going to happen to that student? That student will, seek employment in, at least in the most likely in the education sector. And, there is this tendency that whereas good promotes even better, and, I would say bad or indifferent, promotes even worse. So, problem of our education, I would say it is not the students. We have fantastic students, but I'm not talking of IIT so far, but I have been to many institutions, etc. I mean, even if you see the computer science departments across many places and compare it with what is happening in the best of the places, you can see that even the right areas are not getting covered. So this would be my advice, that as a department, we should ensure only good students are admitted to the PhD program. And then while working with a PhD student, I think this is very important. If he's good, I mean, assuming, we should not specify what is to be done in too much detail. We must give the students space for independent thinking and thereby growing as a researcher. It is very important that PhD is a training to become a researcher. It's not to just, how do you define a bad PhD student? I mean, look, when you interview a person or you take a test, you know. But as I said, that these are, by the way, these are very debatable subjects. And one of the things which is, I know is a research area in some of the best places, is that their admission process, is it biased? So yes, I mean, whatever I'm saying, they may, you might say, yeah, a good student means that he must have done a, undergraduate from a IIT or NIT or something like that. But obviously this has exceptions. So I mean, these are questions maybe you can take up later. So the PhD is also a training to be a researcher. So he must get that space. Okay. Sharad, can we have the next one? We can, yeah, and doing research. See, firstly, I think we should avoid picking up a research area merely because it is fashionable. In fact, I know a very interesting example. Some of you might have heard of Umesh Vazirani. He's a Berkeley professor, and he's younger to me. And once he told me that, that I'm seriously thinking, and this is early 80s or, maybe mid 80s or maybe early 90s, I don't remember, that I'm thinking of going full time devote my full attention. He was already a very established complexity theorist, but he said that I want to give my full attention to quantum computing. And that time, quantum computing was a kind of unknown area. In fact, Feynman had said something about quantum computing and something like that. There were some, stray papers here and there, but there was nothing much known. But he somehow felt, and he said that, I know I'm taking a risk. Umesh Vazirani said, maybe I will not, and he's in Berkeley. It's not a very rich university, but so I may not get funding to have students, etc. But this is what I want to do, I'll do. Then what happened? Now, as you know, in 10, 15 years, within 10 years, it became one of the most fashionable and one of the most researched areas. And so it's, and Umesh Vazirani did pioneering work there. So what I'm trying to say is that don't pick up an area because that's what others are doing. Pick up an area for which one has a passion, one feels for it, okay? And then the other thing is need to always go beyond one's comfort zone. In fact, I've found the best of the people, they don't stay within their comfort zone and keep writing papers and keep getting grants and supervising students in the same area. Somebody, Professor Chandrasekhar of Chicago, who was a Nobel laureate, etc. He had said that every 10 years he kind of changes his, basic area of research. Of course, it is all theoretical physics. But what I'm saying is every day, as a researcher, if we stay in our comfort zone, then that is one thing. Of course, you can be good, you can be competent staying in your comfort zone. But if you go beyond, then there is some chance of doing excellent work. Another thing is collaborative research work is often very, at least I have found it is very rewarding. Collaborative need not mean just within the department, outside department. For example, CS and biology today are coming together so well. Much of the IoT thing, if you can team up with medical professionals, you can do excellent work, which can do lots for our public health system. And there is one book I would like you to refer to. I Want to Be a Mathematician by P.R. Halmos. Some of you might have read his naive set theory. Now, this is a book, very interesting book. He tells how to be a professional mathematician. So he gives his advice about research, his advice about supervising students, his advice about writing recommendation letters for the students, his advice about how to review a paper that has come to you for reviewing from a journal, and so on. So if you get a chance, although it is about, I think much of it is nothing to do with mathematics, it is about being a professional in your area. And next slide, maybe. Contributing to the institute, to the department. Often we hear that, this administrative job, this, I have to do this. It's a chore. It is a chore because because you don't feel ownership about the institute and therefore the department. By ownership, I mean you should be able to feel from your heart that this is my institute, right? So I know whatever you do for your child, that is never a chore, right? Similarly, if you think this institute is my institute, and actually it is true, in the sense that it is the collective decisions of the faculty which essentially run the institute. And I would say that feeling of ownership is very important, and starting from a very young time. I mean, it's not that you have to become senior, become head, etc., something like that. Somehow, if you don't feel that this is my institute from your heart, that will make, doing administrative work a chore. And then the other thing is, often we think that, second bullet, maybe I should read it out. If I have an idea about what needs to be done, which is not shared by others, it does not necessarily mean that they are wrong. It may be that I have not articulated my vision properly. So, I just use the phrase collective wisdom, and you should have faith in that. I mean, what I'm saying is, you may feel that something needs to be done this way within the department, within the institute, and you talk about it, but people are not interested. People say, no, this is not how we should do, or something like that. Then if you get discouraged and kind of withdraw, that will be very, counterproductive. Maybe you have not debated enough in the right fora. Maybe you have not, you should go back to the drawing board about your idea and all that. So what I'm saying is, overall decision making in an institute, there is some kind of vitalism in it. So it's not just collection of decisions by individuals, but something more. There is a metamorphosis, and what that is what I'm trying to say by saying collective wisdom or collective thinking. Why is, I mean, these are very clear. If you compare, for example, it's in the same city, MIT and Harvard. So they have, these two places are quite different in their way of thinking and collective thinking. And so therefore, every place has its own character, and that is built by this collective way of thinking. Okay, and so that is one thing. And then maybe to the next slide, and that should be more or less the this is something I wanted to say. So this is so unfortunate in our country, especially. Of course, it's not that this is not true in departments abroad, but what I'm saying is many departments get ruined because of petty politics. And the root cause of petty politics is often, jealousy. Now, I believe sincerely that jealousy will cease to exist once we realize that everyone has enough space to grow. Academics is like that, right? I do not grow at the expense of some other person. Rather, his growth or her growth can contribute to mine too. Do you understand what I mean? This, I know that there can be a feeling that maybe that person is getting more students. There are all many petty ways we compare ourselves with others and feel bad, and then reactions happen. But we must be absolutely careful in curbing this kind of thoughts. And when I say many departments, I'm talking of, Allahabad University, that's an extremely good example. Think of the mathematics department, think of the physics department, think of the Hindi department or English department. At one time, Allahabad was the topmost university, right? It had Meghnad Saha and people like that, and physics. Why it got ruined? Of course, there was an extra factor there. This petty politics there was to some extent contributed by caste politics. So unfortunate. But that way, at least this modern India doesn't think in terms of caste and creed. So that way we are free of that. But still, I would say that petty politics exists. And this is a term recently somebody told me that I am saying there will be a few energy vampires. By energy vampire, what that person meant was that you talk to them for some time over tea, and then you feel, oh my God, then as he said, the whole day is ruined, so they sap your energy. In many ways, by complaining, by saying nothing can be done, I mean, choro, forget it, I mean, what are you doing this? And so you, I mean, this is true in any system. So you need to, avoid energy vampires. So I think this is more or less, I don't want to touch upon the other things because of lack of time. They are more or less clear. But for example, in grants, etc., I just want to say that opportunities are far higher today, because you can have collaborative research with almost any country. Our DST has whatever it is called, some kind of NSF DST, for example, US and India, that cooperation, Japan and India, France and India, Germany and India. I mean, name any country that you would like to work with, you will have a forum. So some of these, I mean, what I'm trying to say, we should not just think of DST and whatever DBT for money. We should think even globally. Why can't I get an NSF grant? And people in India have got it. So just the next slide is a thank you slide. Maybe the next one. Yeah, thank you very much for listening. And these are my personal opinions. So wishing you all again a very happy Diwali. And so there's some chat box. I can see some questions, but I could. So Sharad, already I think I've taken up more time than allotted to me. But if you permit one or two questions, then
Yes,
maybe
yes.
Yeah.
I think so. First of all, let me thank you for that wonderful, thoughts that you shared with all of us here. In fact, I also learned quite a few things. So I'm quite sure that all the faculty members who are present here from other engineering colleges, they would have also learned many important things, which would perhaps help in shaping engineering education in the country and their own careers. So we'll definitely take a couple of questions. So let me. So one question is from Sri Charan. Should agencies also provide reviews rather than one word rejected? I think this is related to grant calls and other such things.
So my answer is, again, the point is not what others should do. I think the point is what I should do. If it is rejected, there may be many reasons. For example, journals provide everybody, I think. I don't think there is anybody in the world who can say that all the papers he had submitted had been accepted, at least in the original form, right? So what the grant agencies may do, may not do is a different matter. But then again, I should look at the proposal. Of course, in many cases, they do provide, I mean, at least I know, I have been members of some of these DBT committees, and there is a, personal interview with, people present, and the feedback comes out there. So they may not actually give it to you in writing, but as you present, certain things come out. And most of the agencies do that, right? At least they shortlist, and then the shortlisted ones, the serious ones, they have the opportunity to present. And during the presentation, certain things come out, and that you may take it as, if it then gets rejected, you should get the hint from there. But then all I'm saying, rejections should not, be any. It's part of academic life, right? I mean, I'm saying that your ideas will be rejected, your proposals will be rejected. That's okay, but that's part of the game.
Yes, true. Okay, next question that is there that I will summarize. I think I understand the feelings of embedded in that question. Is nowadays in the teaching profession, everybody is required to do a PhD. So many universities, many bodies have made PhD mandatory if you are in the teaching profession or if you wish to join the teaching profession. But then the question is, not everybody would be good in research, but they may be good in other things like perhaps teaching. Then how does how do people deal with this dilemma?
I think the answer is there. The kind of institution you select, for example, even in the US, I'm giving the US example because that's something most of us see because it is very transparent. There are certain four-year colleges which provide excellent education, but they're not so good in research, right? And on the other hand, I mean, places like Princeton, the so-called, you go there to thinking that all these people will teach me, but maybe they will not teach you. They have their own. They are busy with their grants and all that, and they buy out time, teaching time, right? So this is very ironical that system is there. But what I'm saying is this distinction in IITs. If you think IIT is a model which is worth emulating, this distinction was never made in IIT. That there is a teaching faculty and research faculty. But for example, in Stanford hires instructors whose job is just to teach. And then people like, some of the people you hear of, they may not teach at all semester after semester. But that is not something IIT system encourages. And if that is worth emulating, I mean, there is something Professor Mishra said which rang so true. You see, I mean, why in this COVID time, so much innovation happened from in the country? Like one example I can give you, that this Sasha mask, I think it is an N95 mask. It's very popular. Yeah, so it is very popular, and that is a mask which is produced in IIT Kanpur. The innovation there is they use I think what is nano fabric. This is so. I mean, all kinds of things have happened. That is because the challenge was given, and people. So that is again there. I think the country needs to challenge the young people. And I think everybody is capable of doing and meeting some challenge or the other. So at least I would think, and that maybe we should, at least everybody should try to do research. But the question about whether one should have a PhD to be a professor, I think no, because there are, Floyd. I don't know whether you know Floyd, because he was one of the early pioneers of verification, etc. Stanford faculty. He never had a PhD. So, I mean, there are many such examples, right? And I know in IIT Kharagpur, one of the most what is it called? I think everybody respected him. He did not have a PhD. At one time, Calcutta University had something called Premchand Raichand Scholar, and it was thought, even higher than PhD. And he was rejected first time in the professorial interview because he did not have a PhD. And then, somebody said, we had to face this humility. So anyway, he got his DSc in a year's time. He just put together what he did and he got a DSc. But what I'm saying is there are many examples of a great researcher doing, not having a PhD. So yes, but unfortunately, we operate. I mean, I'm telling you one problem that IITs face. Can you hire a fantastic researcher from an industry who has been after PhD all the way through in industry doing research? He has publications, everything, patents, but he does not have, the requisite experience as associate prof or whatever. You'll find it very difficult as a professor to hire him. You can hire such a person at the entry level with ease, but so these are our problems. I think they will be ironed out sooner or later. So if the answer is, I don't know whether I've answered the question.
Yeah, I think the question is well answered. Perhaps they may still think, why is that our regulatory bodies and they insist on PhD mandatorily for continuing in education profession or to apply for a PhD position. But that is something that I think is something that needs to be debated and discussed, on a wider scale. But the point that you don't need to have a PhD to be a good researcher or to be a good teacher, that I think that was well made, and the faculty member who asked this question, I hope he is satisfied with the answer. So there are a few other questions, but those maybe we'll take later. So I would like to thank, because those questions are related to how researchers can collaborate with industry, how PhD students can move forward if they are stuck. So we will maybe take up that later after the next talk. So I would like to thank Professor Biswas once again for sharing his views on the roles of a faculty member. And I hope all the participants here from other places as well as from IIT Goa would have found it very interesting. Okay. So thank you, Professor Biswas, once again for that, those wonderful.
No, thank you. I mean, these are random thoughts of rambling thoughts of a retiring person or retired person. So, but please take it in that spirit.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Biswas. The sharing of experience, I think, is what matters. So whether we do it through PowerPoint slides or we just share our thoughts, I think it's the sharing that is very important and crucial. So thank you, Professor Biswas, for that. Next, as we move with the inaugural session now, we have with us Professor Bidyadhar Subudhi. He is currently the Dean of R&D at IIT Goa and a Professor of Electrical Engineering at IIT Goa. He he obtained his PhD from Sheffield University in the UK and has done his MTech from IIT Delhi and his BTech in Electrical Engineering from NIT Rourkela. His research interests are in systems and control theory, system identification, adaptive control, active power filtering, control of photovoltaic systems, control of autonomous underwater vehicles. So he knows a lot about controls, which is very good. Let me also mention that he was elected a fellow of the Indian National Academy of Engineering last year. He is also a fellow of IIT UK. And he also features as one of the top researchers in control theory in the country. So Professor Subudhi I would like to welcome Professor Subudhi to the program, and he would be giving a talk. It's an overview sort of technical talk on the Internet of Things. So welcome Professor Subudhi, and over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharad. So can you please give me the permission to share my slides?
I think you already have the permission to share the slide.
No, it is not allowing me. It mentions host disabled you.
Okay.
Yeah, they changed the host, I think. So ask
I will.
director's office.
I'll make you the host. You can then share it directly.
Oh yeah, now it's okay.
Yeah.
So is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So very good morning to all, and I take this opportunity to welcome all these participants to the FDP and respected director, Professor Mishra, and Dr. Sharad, the coordinator of this program, and Professor Biswas. So I will be speaking on IoT, the Internet of Things landscape for this FDP today. I will be speaking what is basically IoT or Internet of Things, and a brief history and what is the future of IoT, and some of the advantages of using this IoT and the enabling technology that is needed for the IoT applications and further developments, and some applications of IoT. So if you look at the basic concept behind the IoT, it is basically the internet. So the phenomena by which we connect the things through the internet, so that these things can communicate each other among each other. So we call this IoT, and there are several definitions. Like from the Wikipedia, if you look at the Internet of Things, basically called the Internet of Objects. That refers to a wireless network between objects. Usually, the network will, the network will provide the communication between different objects. Maybe it is household appliances or any other thing, and that extends the current internet and providing communication and networking between devices. But it is also called Internet of Objects as well. The technologies and solutions that enable the integration of different data and services, so that the current information networking can be coming under the umbrella of the Internet of Things. That means we want to connect several things together through the internet. Now, this is one of the very popular viewpoint of any X point. That means at any time, any place, like that. So that means the network that should be available at anywhere, anytime, and anything and anyone. So you can connect any device, you can connect anywhere, and you can have any kind of services. Maybe it is human to human, or human to things, or things to thing. So one of the aspects, all of us know that the recent days is the cyber physical system. That means we have a physical system or object, and we want to control it by virtue of some control techniques, by communication and control. But nevertheless, there is another concept called cyber physical social system, where there is an integration necessary that is being accomplished by virtue of IoT, that integrates the cyberspace with the physical space and the social space. So we have different, having said that, we must also ensure the security and reliability and take care of the volume of data that we are going to handle, and also to observe the social impacts of these. And okay, so we know that we connect through the internet to different people. So now the concept is that every person can connect to internet, or maybe some sensors or some devices. But now the question is that the devices or the things can connect each other. For example, I have a vehicle, I want to make it more reliable. So I can connect to the the gas station. I can connect to the garage where I experience a fault. Immediately I can look into how it could be repaired. or maybe the police can control the vehicles in a roadway. So therefore the things also connecting the things. And what makes it more feasible is that the wireless sensor network, because these are very small power consuming low power devices networks that enables connectivity across all these elements, all these things together. So how are the networks changing all these to happen? So that means we need to connect, as I mentioned in my first or second slide, that we want to have a connectivity of all the, whatever things you want to connect at any place, at any point of time. It can be through, like this IoT will enable us to connect billions of interconnected devices. And we need to connect everyone whom we wish to be connected. And that is possible by virtue of some, like the recent, we have come to the 5G, but the LTE, that is the 4G or the earlier communication. So compared to that, the current communication technology enables us for this faster connectivity. And we therefore have the enhancement of our smart network, and then more data and awareness in the context of the data handling grows further. Now, if you look at the little history behind this IoT, look into the year 2008, the number of things that are connected is more than the number of people in the earth. And now it exceeds 2010 and 2015 and 2020, 50 billion, things or the devices are being connected through the IoT. Now the gradual evolution that has happened is that it is not only by connecting a network to another network, it is basically connecting the devices or the things across the network. And if you look at the basic concept behind the IoT is that we need a physical object or a thing, and we need a controller that controls all these decision making, and then the sensors and actuators, and the connectivity, all of them is accomplished by virtue of a network or internet. And why do you require these? What is the benefit of using this IoT? That we want to have better, relationship between the human and nature. We could have dynamic control of industry and our daily life. We could have accessibility for different usage, and we could have universal transportation and internetworking, and we could have several flexible configuration that we wish to obtain. And all these are necessary to augment our life in accomplishing a good quality of life. Like we need to have smart city, we need to have smart car, we need to have smart me. That means I must take care of my health and fitness and many other things for my personal well-being through the employing Internet of Things. Now, more things are being connected today by virtue of Internet of Things, and those make our life more, comfortable, and our daily life, the usage in the daily life, like from the coffee or from the gym or wherever. So IoT now is a very much necessity now. Now, if you look at how it becomes so popular or so fast growing, if you recall the Moore's law, that says that over the history of computing, the number of transistors in a dense integrated circuit has doubled approximately every 2 years. That means if you go back to your mainframe computer, the IBM mainframe computer, how big size it is. Now look at the current iPhone. Even it compared to the Apollo 11 or Cray 1 or Cray 2, with which consume more power with the least amount of power, it can give you, it can speed up the computation with a frequency of 1.3 gigahertz, and maybe there could be as many as 1 gigabyte of memory. So therefore, the computing has gone a lot, and the cost also gone down as per the Moore's law. And if you see the IoT history way back, actually the first, like the internet emerges in 1969. And then in 99, the IoT gets a name. Actually, Kelvin Ashton is the first man who coined it as IoT. And thereafter, you look at that, the lot of development happened. Like the first one, the product that has come with the toaster with IoT in 90, and thereafter, United States make a visible progress in 2005, and then Apple made a great success in 2014. And now it has 2020, as I mentioned, it has crossed 50 billion, Internet of Things, internet connectivity to the things. Now, the basic concept behind the IoT, if you look at it, these, as I mentioned, the things or the physical object that you want to connect, and you have the networks. Maybe you can choose any of the network, like maybe a wireless LAN, or maybe a body area network, or maybe a personal area network, or maybe a control area network. Or all these can happen through the cloud services. Either when you post all these through the cloud, instead of necessitating your own attention, the cloud takes care, and it directs the actuators and sensor to automatically adjust your requirements. And there are a lot of consumer electronics that employ this IoT concept, maybe starting from vehicles, the automobiles, wherever, like, printing, all aspects of our life is now accomplished through the IoT. Now, if you go back the basic ABCD, that means the application, big data analysis, connectivity, and the devices. So we have the application, several applications to name, whatever you name. So that is now possible through the IoT. And the another name, very much similar to IoT, the big data analysis. That means the main problem behind is that the voluminous data we need to handle. You need to devise some technique how to deal with such big data, and the connectivity, and then what final device. Maybe we can get like a, like everybody is now saying, I wear a watch, and how to know that how many kilometers I walked, and what is my, energy consumed, all that. So all these are the physical or wellness, everything is now the, whatever small product you do that employs IoT. Now, basically, this IoT architecture, the four main things are basically the things, the internet, or maybe the network, and the cloud. So therefore we call sometimes as systems of systems. And the basic hardware, if you look into, that is the device level and the network level. So in the device level, we have the things. We have this, because the basic building block that help us for the IoT are the sensors and actuators, and then the communication. And then we have the network level, that is the network, gateway, and the internet, and the servers. So these are the basic elements of the IoT. And as I mentioned, there is a lot of growth has happened in the sensor and actuator technology as well. Like in the sensors, you see that we can have different sensors possible. Like we have the passive sensors, like like you can simple microphone, or maybe a narrow beam sensor, like a passive infrared or sensor, or you could have like sonars or radars, all those active sensors. And there are actuators, like they are mainly output components from a device. They basically alter the surroundings by virtue of their conversion, let us say a simple DC motor connecting a physical system, or for controlling some drive. So in that case, that becomes the actuator, or maybe a stepper motor to a printer. So all of them are considered to be the actuators for the devices. And as I mentioned you, that the sensor technology has been improved, has gained a lot of momentum in the recent past. Like we have the biosensor, like to know what kind of pesticides in our food, that can also be easily detected by employing an IoT by virtue of a biosensor. There could be thermal sensors, photo sensors, piezoelectric sensor, image sensors, gas sensors, humidity sensors, motion sensors. So by that you can monitor the quality of air, you can monitor the temperature, you can monitor the gas leakage, you can monitor the temperature, humidity. You can do much more things than for our way of life. So not only that, but for the health monitoring system nowadays, the biomedical aspect of it. If you see that a patient's position can be monitored maybe through accelerometer, maybe it's breathing, quality of breathing, like the airflow sensors, maybe it is ECG, and maybe the kind of the oxygen, the saturated oxygen levels, and maybe galvanic skin response. So all of them can be, sensed by virtue of all these advanced sensors. And these sensors can connect to the cloud through the gateways, through the routers, and then we can have different data. And of course, we can employ the big data analysis to scale it down, and we can use cloud as a facilitator for the IoT. And if you look at the today's vehicle, the automobile, it employs hundreds of sensors for the safety and security and the luxury. So it is not only that the vehicles are the sources of energy important, its safety and security now is more for the luxury cars or the expensive cars is basically accomplished by virtue of employing different, the IoTs there in a vehicle. So the sensors now, a lot of sensors are becoming widely available now. For example, we have programmable devices. We have different gadgets available, like as I mentioned, like we could have our even our how much distance I traveled, what how many steps I climbed, and all that. So everything can be monitored easily by employing the IoTs. So basically, the IoT, the basic thing, the physical object that we want to control, that we want to monitor, is the thing. So we can turn almost every object into a thing. A thing still looks much like an embedded system currently. Like, the embedded system, the basic concept employs here. This sometimes people can understand it as a synonymous thing. Because unlike in a computer applied for different system or processes to control, an embedded system is one which is dedicated for a particular application. So also the IoT, by virtue of the microcontroller, etc., so can be tailored as a embedded system. And it can consist of basically the sensors, microcontroller, the communication unit, the power supply. So a thing that has the following properties: that it is usually powered by a battery. This implies limited source of energy, or it may not be possible to do the complicated task, maybe, but for the small application, we can employ the batteries as well. And power consumption issue is also a great challenge now. How much power, how minimally you can accomplish the job with less amount of power. So the IoT communication that is more visible now, because as I mentioned, from the 3G, 4G, and 5G, and we have different technologies now possible, starting from all these initial RFID to till all these like Bluetooth, Zigbee, and all are possible. The communication frameworks that help the IoT to grow further. And the IoT cloud, if you look at it, as I mentioned, that any number of cloud services that can power an IoT. So once the data gets the cloud, the software processes the data, and then we may decide instead of the intervention of the person or the physical intervention, automatically adjust the sensors or the actuators to accomplish the job. So therefore, there are different components one should accomplish by connecting the IoT, like the analytics, the computation, and the visualization, and the storage aspect of it. And as I mentioned, that different communication, as I said earlier, that we have a lot of improvement happen, like the role of communication is more important in IoT. We could have, but while saying the more important, we could have the communication either wireless or wireline. But of course, wireless is more preferred, like RF or the RF-based communication are more popular. And we have different communication solution for the RF-based communications, like IEEE 802.15.4 or IEEE 802.11 for the Wi-Fi, and there could be the NFC, or could be Bluetooth or RFID. All these communication can be thought of for the IoT. So the role of network is sufficiently understood by now. So it is basically to manage the connectivity or the communication across the all these objects, and these as I mentioned, that the wireless sensor networks, the manets, and we have the wireless mesh network, we have the vehicular ad hoc networks. So all these networks are now very much pronounced in the IoT applications. But the major concern is the reliability and their performance that need to be evaluated still to go further. And the internet is the basic building block here. The internet serves as the wide area networking for local network. and the internet uses the TCP/IP protocol. This implies that things must also support the TCP/IP. And the gateway or the sink for a practical deployment, a gateway is often needed in a network. So the internet, so which device you want to connect? For example, you might be knowing the real-time simulators nowadays. That has the TCP/IP. So therefore, it will mimic the kind of the real-time simulation will help you to know that actually what it could have been in the, if you do an experiment. So that kind of thing is conceivable if you have the TCP or IP in the object, and you can connect to the, you know, the computing device by virtue of the TCP/IP. While we discussed about the communication part of it, but the more important is that what are the challenges? There are challenges involved in the device level, in the network level, in the system level, as well as the user level. And we should find out their solution and what are the risks involved for there. And the security aspect is also should be thought of. So there are different software platform and services that is needed for the IoT, different operating system, by maybe a tiny operating system. We could have different reference models, could be different middleware or gateway, and the different services like the conventional communication network. The target is moving bits from one place to other. We could have like how to facilitate all these through the right choice of the operating system. The system models and application standards, there must be, you know, like there are a lot of applications, IoT application now has come into existence. Like I will come in my next slides, like the smart city, smart homes, healthcare, smart grids, and the physical cyber social system, as I mentioned in my previous slides, and machine-to-machine communication, system models and standards. So if you look at this global data generation, every day around 20 quintillion, that is 10 to the power 18 data are being produced. So these data include textual content that may be structured or unstructured, semi-structured, and to a multimedia content, maybe images, video, audio, etc. So the ultimate goal is to transform this raw data to insight and actionable knowledge by creating effective representation forms for the machine to handle those. And to this usually requires a lot data for multiple users in the real time. So therefore, the data handling or the big data Hello, 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 hello.
Yeah, we can hear you, Professor Subudhi.
Okay, so I have some network issue. I'm reconnecting again.
Yeah, okay.
So is it visible?
Yes.
Okay. So, each single data item is important for us. So therefore, we should employ some kind of technique, how to handle these big data. So I was, at this slide, like the intelligent data processing. So the sensing the data and data collection and sensor data and data consenting networks. So after receiving all these data, we need to handle these data efficiently by virtue of some machine learning techniques. And we have to have some data clustering and data classification. And the things, the data and data and lots of it are important for IoT. For example, we have each single data is important for us. So relying merely on a data from source that doesn't make sense, we have to filter, make it the data which is of relevance. So we have to take care of the relevant data from the raw data. So there are some challenges in the IoT. The challenges are the multimodal and heterogeneous kind of applications, and the noise in the data, and the time and location dependent of the application, and dynamic because it should be the IoT should be in the the dynamic environment and sufficient with varied quality. And then we could have the data could be unreliable, so then we have to authenticate the data. And for real-time analysis of the data, and the security of the data is also for the privacy and the security, and data could be biased also, so we have to take into consideration before handling the data, so for the IoT. So people want answers, not the numbers. At the end, I want something in my computer, not that how much data I handle. So therefore, we need to do something to how to come up with a relevant data. So storing, handling, and processing of the data is also to be accomplished. And the semantic technologies and connecting these data to the web. That means the metadata models we can employ, or we can link the data, or link the IoT data concepts. We can have the semantic technology for the data representation. We could have interoperability issues, like from one device the other device, how can use. And then web of things, I can manage different things in the web. So like, for example, the data, the device interoperability also very important for us. So there are different IoT market, market and stakeholders, starting from the, like your hospital, doctors, healthcare, home and building. We have the retails, energy sectors, transportation, media, manufacturing. All of them, they now are the stakeholders for the IoT market. And the diverse applications, if you look at it, like from home, transport, health, buildings, and cities. So everywhere now we find that IoT makes the things much smoother way, like we have the trafficking control, or the patient care, like the automation in the building, or could be the distribution system. Everywhere IoT now applied. So the application of IoT, if you look into that, the ultimate goal is the the sky the limit. So the computing and the cyber physical system and the smart connected health, all of these are the applications of the IoT. So now we could expect that in the IoT in the shopping scenario, when you go to a retail shop, the things will tell me about its quality and its choice to enable us to make a choice to buy it, to identify it. So therefore, this is the more friendly, the IoT friendly shopping we can expect in future. And the IoT application, if you look at it, like in the previous slides we discussed, like it could range from this smart home to smart farming, like it could be smart city, smart grid, connected cars, could be retails, many things. Now the recent concept of the government encouraging for the smart cities, basically with a viewpoint, the effective management with a limited resources to serve a largest possible population, to improve the quality of life, to improve the workability, to provide the sustainability. So therefore, we call it that 3 I's. That means we depend on the instrumentation, the sensors, and the intelligence, the machine learning, whatever, or big data analysis, the interconnection in the networks. For a smart city uses the 3 I's, all the 3 I's, by intent of the intent of getting the livability, workability, and sustainability by employing suitable Internet of Things concepts. So IoT is considered to be the backbone of smart cities. In a smart city, we could expect that good energy management, automation in the energy management, the building management, embedded systems, then our everyday things like telephone, or maybe our TV, maybe our telemedicine, healthcare, maybe vehicle asset, pet monitoring control, maybe we could have from any machine to any machine control. So all these are possible through the IoT. So therefore, IoT the backbone of a smart city. Now, in a smart city, we do expect also the handling of garbage. So the garbage handling could be made more automated way by employing the like we can what kind of garbage, whether it is biodegradable, and what kind of infrastructure I should know to dispose it of, and whether it is a it contains something very dangerous articles, so like that. So all these sensing in the IoT will help us to pick the right kind of garbage and to dispose it off. And the healthcare, the IoT has a big role, like the real-time monitoring of the patient's data and better emergency responses and easy access to the patient data and connectivity among the stakeholders, maybe who are the, like once some data of the patient is acquired, how it can be transmitted to the doctor, and how then the doctor can provide a good, prescription or maybe suggestion for the health care. And therefore, for our sustainable health care system with a limited resource, by employing the IoT, we can make our health system more stronger. And the fitness tracker also can be another example where IoT can be employed. And the IoT smart energy, what I discussed is that the like the IoT has a big role in the energy sector as well. The management of energy resources, how good I could get the power generation from the different renewable energy options, like the photovoltaics by the wind energy sources, and from the so like the charging a vehicle to the grid, or maybe both way around, the vehicle to grid as well, and enhancing the consumer relationship, like unlike the earlier grids where we want to only one-way communication from the the service provider to the consumer. Now the consumer also can have a possibility to communicate with the service provider. And we could have the different the smart generations or renewable generation. We could have smart storage. We could have different service providers there connected to the smart network, and thereby what we achieve the quality of the power supply, and we could do the minimal carbon, because the renewables are connected to the smart grid. We do expect there is a reduction in the carbon footprint. So one of such example of the application is a smart grid. In a smart grid, basically there are 4 components. One is the generation, wherein we get the power sources, for example, photovoltaic, wind, or maybe fossil fuel, whatever. And then connected to the transmission line, if it is a classical or conventional power supply. Of course, renewables are connected as a distributed generating sources, and thereafter we could have the transmission through which all these this power will be transmitted to long ends. And after receiving the distribution end by distribution transformers, they could be available for the customers at the consumption end. And we can employ the smart meters and smart appliances for the consumer side. And therefore, now all these devices, all these components are being connected to the control center by virtue of the wide area networks, by virtue of the like the neighbor area network, or it could be by virtue of the home area networks. And this consumption of the component by the customer side, we could have the electrical devices like smart appliances or electric vehicles that are being connected to the grid. And we could connect the AMI, that is called the automatic metering instrument. So these AMIs are basically collocated and interact with the gateway and home area network that facilitates the customer to know about his energy usage. And if at all he has his own DG and he can transmit some of his excess power to the microgrid or the smart grid, then what way he can be benefited. And it could also give him a suggestion, so which kind of power he will switch on to use for saving the cost of energy usage for efficient usage. And therefore the smart grid is all these can be accomplished through the IoT. Now this is a cyber physical system, and the smart grid that, as I mentioned, is an IoT application where we require this demand side management. That means if you have several distributed generating sources, for example, the photovoltaic or could be wind sources connected together, and then how much each DG could share, they would need to transfer to the grid. And then when you want to, suppose there is a fault, so how to switch off quickly by employing a anti-aliasing detection algorithm, or how to execute the kind of the quality of power, how to ensure suppose in a hospital system you want to employ a smart grid. power you want to provide there, or an office you want to provide there. So how to take care of the disturbances and how to take care of the blackouts there. So all these are possible by employing the sensors. And you know, the phasor measurement unit is a very recent concept. What is being used to detect the fault quickly, and thereby the fault could be isolated by employing the phasor measurement units. So smart grid is a good application of IoT that helps us to provide quality power and economical power and prevent the blackouts. And the earlier grids, if you look at it, they have the same components like the generation, transmission, distribution, and the consumers, but there was no communication there. And also the earlier the grids, they only allow the fossil fuel based power to be connected there, and those are basically dispatchable. That means depending upon you want to control the frequency, regulate the frequency, so these sources can be controlled. But unlike that, the photovoltaic, wind, etc., are not dispatchable. But there is a big challenge here. So as I said, the communication is important here, that the load must interact with the source. So here that is more important. The customer and the service provider are interconnected. And one of other application recently we did with BRNS, that is the Board Research Nuclear Science. We have a collaboration with IPR, that is like Ahmedabad, the Plasma Research Institute, where the plasma is the fourth state of matter, and we need to constrain the plasma in the center of the vessel, plasma vessel. So if it is not set in the center, there could be instability, and therefore we may not get the stable operation of the plasma. So the nuclear fusion is not achieved as expected. So in order to do that, the IoT is employed here. What you do is we employ 48 sensors here. Those are magnetic sensors, and then we apply the machine learning or the IoT there to diagnose, to detect all, to classify these faults and to isolate those faults and to design a fault tolerant control there. So what we did is that we did a IoT based fault detection for tokamak position control. There we have employed some of the machine learning algorithms like MLP, the multi-layer perceptron, and K nearest neighbor network, support vector classifiers, Gaussian naive-based networks, decision tree, and random based forest network. And so we took the data from Aditya tokamak. It is the only tokamak available in India, Aditya tokamak, and that data we then used to design our fault detection using machine learning, these machine learning techniques. Then what you do is we simulate the different faults, different sensor faults. Then these sensor faults are then transmitted by virtue of Bluetooth, the Raspberry Pi. Then through a UART, these simulated signals are then passed to here. Then by this machine learning algorithm is executed in this FPGA, and by virtue of another UART, this is transmitted or the transport to a PC, where we develop a graphic user interface. So that will tell you that what kind of fault that has happened. And we did in the real-time hardware in-loop simulation for this fault detection for a tokamak process. And the IoT has a great application also in the agriculture. Like by employing suitable sensors, we can know the temperature, the weather condition, and the resiliency to the climate change can be accomplished. And then the automatic irrigation system, looking at the the pattern of the quality of land and the crop quality. So therefore, IoT also now brings the automation in the agriculture sector. So the IoT, although has several such beautiful applications, but nevertheless there are a lot more challenges for the research community to look into. Like there are massive scaling of the data is necessary, and design and operation cost must be optimal, and the energy consumption should be optimal, and security, privacy, and protection must be looked into. And creating a kind of big data analysis for handling such a big amount of data in IoT is important. And then the different architectures and dependencies of the devices for the IoT hardware is important. And after all, the robustness is to be looked into. So in future, we expect that there could be now 2020, we have all these, possible by this time also around 50 billion machines are being connected. And starting from like we have the real-time planning for the rails, shipment visibility, we have the hospital optimization, we have the different connected machines in the, like industries, we have the smart grids, factory automation, and different logistic applications. So all of them are now growing, and people call the sky the limit. Actually, sky is not limit. That beyond the sky, we also expect that IoT should grow. Now, the potential of IoT, that the value of industrial internet. Sometimes it is called industrial internet. Almost every sector, industry sector, the IoT has made a big progress. Like aviation sector, power sector, healthcare sector, rail sector, oil and gas. So the different saving, if you look at, there is a survey by General Electric, and there is a comparison that the connected machine and data could eliminate up to 150 billion in waste across the industries. And there are saving in the aviation sector by employing IoT is 1% fuel saving, and in case of power sector it is 100% saving, and in case of healthcare system 1% reduction in the system inefficiency is result, and in case of rail 1% of reduction in the system inefficiency result, and also in case of oil and gas 1% reduction in the capital and expenditure has been saved. So that gives a bigger saving estimated over a period of 15 years in the $1 billion. Like aviation sector has made a saving of $30 billion, and power 66, and then healthcare $63 billion, railways and oil gas 27 and $90 billion. So a lot of estimated potential are there with the IoT in all these sectors. Now there are massive potential we could foresee, like there could be improved performance, reduced cost, and create innovative services for the IoT, and that would create new revenue system, and your economy could improve. And the roadmap is that started from RFID, and now we are the physical, the cloud we are entering into with a lot of advanced sensors. So therefore, a lot more new research necessary how to bring in new sensors and new machine learning techniques for making decision making, and that will make it further to grow the physical applications of the IoT will further grow. It is also seen from a source that the thought control computing also featuring in IoT, like the flagship product that is called MindWave is a headset that can log into your computer using just your thoughts. And it has been seen that using the easy headset, one can develop a toy car has been developed that can be driven forward with thought. So that means thought-based computing has featured in the IoT. So that means what you think that can be translated to the action by IoT. So the current status and the future prospect, if you evaluate the number of connected devices per person and number of connected, how it increases. If you see the world population over the years, like the 6.3 billion 2003 to 7.6 in 2020, the lot of devices, as I mentioned, that 500 million to 50 billion. So change is now could be visibly noticed. And IoT issues, like there could be the attacks, the cyber attacks, or could be disrupt of services, or could be steal information, and somebody can take the control from you from this. So therefore, these need to be taken to like how to ensure all these disrupt of service or the information security, and the ensuring the right kind of control or without hijacking anything. So how this can be achieved. These are some of the IoT challenges. Now the intelligent system for more connected world is the opportunity for us. As I I have shown you the slides previously, like from different sectors, like we could have how much saving in the different sectors, automobile sectors, medical sector, industry sector, how much growth is expected, and how many. So this is the Intel finding that we are 71% of suppers, they depend upon the IoT. These are all IoT dependent, and the 23.6 million connected cars, IoT connected for the road safety and security. And we could have the industrial environment, all these, the industry 4 that also coming in, and people expect to use IoT to accomplish all these prescription or the specification in the industry 4 standard. And the concluding remark that through emerging technologies, the IoT will still go further, and these IoT services grows and the applications are expanding, starting from the smart cities, healthcare, transport, logistics, safety, security, and the business trend and new opportunities are there with the growth of IoT. IoT has come to describe a number of technologies and research discipline, and that enable the internet to reach out into real world of physical objects. So therefore, this IoT has a big opportunity for everyone, for the industry perspective, for academic perspective, and for the research perspective. So this is my last slide, I guess, and then there are some references for your reference. So that's it from this lecture, and some questions.
Thank you, Prof. Subudhi, for that wonderful overview of Internet of Things. I think you touched upon many aspects of Internet of Things. So from the participants, we can have some questions. I have one question here, which is, what was the need for the name IoT when Internet is anyway being used for the same things? So it is being asked by Mr. Arjun Singh. So he's asking this question because IoT term is unknown to most of the people.
Yeah, so the internet, why it is coined, basically the building block of the IoT is the communication, and internet provides the connectivity. You call it cloud, you call it any environment, but internet is the backbone of it. Therefore, the internet word is more suitable here.
Any other question from the participants? So there is another question. Can we consider internet-enabled system as IoT?
Say again, the internet?
Internet-enabled system as IoT.
Yeah, suppose, for example, an embedded system. Sometimes there is a confusion. Embedded system, we call it IoT, but truly speaking, when embedded system also can be called an IoT system. It employs IoT basically.
Okay, so internet embedded systems can also be called as Internet of Things.
Yeah.
So we'll take one more question from participants, if there is any one more question. Okay, so if not, then okay, there is one. One question is, how can we use machine learning in solid waste management? From Sujesh Kumar.
Okay, so actually I have not worked on waste management, but what it seems to me, let us say there is a industrial environment, and in the industrial environment, the garbage handling, the waste handling. So maybe start from the waste. Let us call about the waste recovery system. So if I call the waste recovery system in like there are some heat energy still there. So we can use this heat energy further for the economy of the power generation. That is one aspect where we can see that what machine learning you can employ quickly, that estimate the temperature, maybe right kind of sensors you can employ there. That data you can bring into the machine learning platform, and you can estimate the temperature, and accordingly you design that the partitioning or the splitting of these the what is not to be used and what is to be used. And about the common sense is about the biodegradable and not degradable. So we can isolate them, but these are also manually. It can be not possible to make it automated. If you can use them through using sensors and using IoT, And then the decision making can be done by using the machine learning, like as I mentioned, one of the examples like the tokamak process. So where the online monitoring of these waste can be handled. Possibly yes.
Okay, so I hope that answers the question, Mr. Sujesh Kumar. So with that, I would like to thank Professor Subudhi for this wonderful talk, which touched upon many aspects of IoT, and it gave a very wide overview of technical aspects of IoT, business aspects of IoT, application aspects of IoT. So I hope it was very interesting to all the participants. So thank you, Professor Subudhi, for the talk. Yes, the slides will be shared later. We will make arrangements for that. Okay.
Okay.
And before we conclude this session, so I am sharing the attendance link with all of you.
Thank you, Dr. Sharad. So I enjoyed the talk, and I hope the participant could have enjoyed. And
Yes.
Thank you once again, all the participants for their patient hearing.
Thank you, Prof. Subudhi. So before we close this session, all participants, please check the chat box. I am sending one link where you have to go and mark your attendance for day 1. Okay. You have to use your registered name for this faculty development program as well as the registered email ID.